In May 1911, a small group of people gathered in Sea Point, Cape Town, to pray, consult, and socialize. It was the first formal activity of a budding Baha'i community in South Africa. In those days, it was two sisters, Fanny and Pauline Knobloch, who helped nurture that young society. As fresh impetus came, the Baha'i community began to grow when, in 1953, 13 American Baha'is settled in Cape Town, Pretoria, Johannesburg, and Durban. The Baha'i community flourished in those days in the 1950s as the first Xhosa, Tswana, Sotho, Coloured and Cape Malay South Africans declared their faith in Baha'u'llah. From then on, the activities of this young faith group took on an entirely new dynamic. On a warm and sunny day in 1956, on a small farm in the heart of the Highveld, a diverse group of Baha'is came together and created an institution that would guide the way for that community to make its contribution to the unification of South Africa's peoples. The creation of this institution, known as the National Spiritual Assembly, would align itself with similar ones around the globe, which were all dedicated to nurturing the growing community and safeguarding and promoting the principles of freedom of belief and the oneness of humanity. Southern Africa in the 1950s was in a state of great social and political change. The spirit of independence from colonial powers was rising in the continent. Countries like South Africa responded by experimenting with social engineering based on race and the control of thought and belief. People were divided and subdivided into an irrational hierarchy. Uniting people and celebrating their diversity was a difficult task for anyone under these circumstances. But the Baha'is were one such group who came together to build a channel for unity that sunny day in 1956. Imagine the sight of a cross-section of humanity arriving from all corners of Southern Africa by whatever means they could find, together in the heart of the land where diversity was a reason to legally divide them. Even though it was a joyous occasion, backup plans were made to address security concerns. As historical accounts of that day recall, Reg Tovey, the famous South African painter, was posted on the road to the farmhouse where all were gathered. If the security police approached, Reg was to signal to the participants and they would then disperse. The African Baha'is would pretend to be cleaning and cooking, while the white Baha'is would pretend to be playing cards. Such were the realities of the time. Happily, the convention passed without disruption, and the first National Spiritual Assembly of the Baha'is of South and West Africa was born. It would ultimately give birth to 13 similar assemblies in the subcontinent and the southern Indian Ocean. Every action taken by the assembly of this then largely unknown religion was underpinned by a single concept: the oneness of humanity and the celebration of diversity. This concept and its practice is the central teaching of Baha'u'llah. Nearly 150 years ago, Baha'u'llah wrote, "The well-being of mankind, its peace and security are unattainable unless and until its unity is firmly established." One of the unique features of a Baha'i assembly is that its authority lies only with the institution and not with any of its individuals. Baha'u'llah made provisions to exclude the possibility of a clerical elite arising. Instead, an assembly operates on the principles of group decision-making and consultation. The Baha'i teachings state that consultation on a Baha'i assembly is to be based on love and harmony amongst its members and governed by the principles and practice of unity. An assembly is elected democratically without campaigning or nominations. Believers are asked to pray and meditate before voting for 9 members who they believe would best serve the community. Their vote is confidential and no individual is considered more enlightened than another. Wealth, education, class, personal status, alliances and the like play no part. It is thus common to see assembly members representing a wide, diverse cross-section of humanity, including and encouraging the participation of women and minorities. This process links with the Baha'i principle of universal education. Baha'u'llah said that in this day and age, all strata of society would need to be educated in order to develop their own understanding and insight into the holy writings. Thus would each and all be able to read the Word of God and independently decide on the issues of life through prayer, reflection, and consultation with others. Diversity of culture and background is not only celebrated, but regarded as a key strength in the Baha'i assemblies. The result of the election that summer day in the Highveld in 1956 was hailed with joy and celebration by Baha'is around the world. The assembly reflected many of the various colors in Southern Africa's Garden of Humanity. Two black South Africans, William Masihla and Andrew Mufokeng, one colored South African, Max Siepa, one Mozambican, Festus Chembeni, one Swazi, Walter Dlamini, and four white, John Allen, Robert Miller, John Robarts, and William Sears. To this day, this diversity remains the pride of the South African Baha'i community. As hard and painful as the apartheid years were, Baha'i saw in this the birth pangs of a unified South Africa. By the early 1990s, in less than 40 years, each of the countries, islands and territories included in the First Assembly had its own thriving community led by an independent assembly. As the politics of apartheid strove to further segregate South Africans, the Baha'i National Assembly of South Africa steadfastly refused to create separate administrations for white and black. The challenge was to marry two apparently conflicting Baha'i principles. One was the obedience to the government, and the other was free, non-racial elections that would encourage diversity. Thus, an unusual decision was taken. The local assembly members were drawn solely from the black Baha'is. This would give a voice to less articulate ideas, empower the oppressed, and uphold the principles of unity, key factors in any Baha'i community. These times were difficult for many Baha'is who craved to live out their diversity more immediately. But on the whole, under the careful guidance of its elected leadership, the community remained steadfast to the more measured, if slower course of fostering and giving a practical reality to unity in diversity. Yet the world shared in their desire and apartheid could no longer last. As the new South Africa dawned, Baha'is were invited to address the Truth and Reconciliation Commission. Amid emotions of those hearings, the Assembly presented its position. The Baha'i community of South Africa reflects the diversity of the human race. Every culture and language group is represented. Baha'is are found in every province, living in every condition, in every walk of life, raising families, being part of South Africa, embracing the transforming power of unity. Today we celebrate a constitution that protects freedom of belief so that South Africans enjoy the dignity of independently seeking and living the truth they find.